Big contract news for the 49ers this morning. It is quite literally triggering in a good way. $58 million of new guarantees secured for the 49ers. Brock Purdy, Fred Warner, and Colton McKivitz, the beneficiaries. I'll explain who gets what money and how it impacts the 49ers' financial situation. Of course, the headliner is always going to be the quarterback, Brock Purdy, who already had $11.9 million guaranteed for the 2027 season. That is next season. But now $15 million additional dollars become guaranteed for Brock Purdy via an option bonus. So he's now got about $27 million fully guaranteed for not this season, but the next. Fred Warner, meanwhile, with his April 1st trigger, now has gone from $0 of guaranteed money in 2026 and 2027 to a whole heck of a lot more guaranteed over the next two seasons. $21 million guaranteed here in 2026 via a staggered prorated option bonus. That is how it counts against the salary cap. And $15.3 million of base salary guaranteed for Fred Warner in 2027. That can obviously be worked on when it comes to salary cap impact, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Finally, the right tackle, Colton McKivitz, who is one of the better bargains in all of football. $6.29 million of Colton McKivitz's 2027 salary has now become guaranteed. All right, so let's unpack this. First, for Brock Purdy, you could take a look at his contract and the staggered option bonuses. The prorated signing bonus, which he got last year upon signing the deal, $40 million, is in blue. So that prorates out to $8 million per year, since you could stretch it out against the salary cap up to 5 seasons. 49ers were able to keep Brock Purdy's immediate salary cap hits low by the colors on this contract table. The first option bonus, which kicked in this year, $38 million, prorates the $7.6 million per year. The second option bonus is now fully guaranteed. That is what the April 1st trigger did for Brock Purdy. So that yellow now is fully guaranteed, and then you'll move on to 2028, where there's an even bigger option bonus, $20 million instead of $15, that will trigger next season, and we fully expect Brock Purdy to earn all this money with the 49ers. In the case of Fred Warner, he didn't have anything guaranteed for this 2026 season. But by virtue of being on the roster here on April, to start April, Fred Warner now is the next 2 seasons guaranteed. Now, the salary cap hit a very manageable $17.8 million for Fred Warner this year. The $15.3 million that is guaranteed in 2027 is base salary, which means that his base salary is actually quite high, and that there is about $14 million worth of that can be converted to an option bonus, which could be further prorated against the cap. And the reason that that's important is because Fred's salary cap hit is set to be $29.5 million next year. That's a number that the 49ers will probably want to knock down at least a little bit. So, and they will be able to. They'll be able to cut that under $20 million by converting what has already become guaranteed for Fred Warner into that option or signing bonus. And of course, if the money's already guaranteed, that's money that's going to have to go to the player. It doesn't matter when you pay it against the salary cap. In fact, you'd rather pay it later because the salary cap grows from season to season. So the 49ers will certainly do some work on Fred Warner's contract. Then you look at Colton McKivitz's deal. This is one that the 49ers were able to execute right before the start of the 2025 regular season. He's under contract through 2028 at an average rate of $15 million per year, which is really, really good for a solid right tackle. And credit to Colton. He has elevated his game over the years to be a solid right tackle in this league. McKivitz sat down to the 49ers last offseason and decided to take the very mature route when it came to a contract. Did he limit the very ceiling of a potential deal? Sure, but he also raised the floor by ensuring guaranteed money. He could have waited a lot longer. He could have waited until he was about to knock on the door of free agency. In fact, he did the opposite of Juwan Jennings. Both came from the same draft class. Both were in the same contractual situation. Jennings decided to bet on himself, bet on the ceiling instead of the floor when he said no to the 49ers offer of about $12 million per year. Colton McKivitz instead bet on the floor, ensured that security, and signed the contract worth $15 million annually. And it included guarantees that will make his life nice and comfortable here over the course of the next couple of seasons. He's under contract with the 49ers through 2028, and now $6.29 million of his 2027 salary has vested into that guarantee. He gets over $8 million this season in an option bonus that the 49ers obviously will pay out. So that essentially has become insured for Colton McKivitz as well. But the guarantees roll over into 2027, and the 49ers fully anticipate Colton McKivitz being their right tackle for that season. So in total, $58 million of new guaranteed money. Vested now will be given out by the 49ers to three good recipients: Brock Purdy, Fred Warner, Colton McKivitz. Obviously, all at different price points, and Warner's were the most significant guarantees that the 49ers saw triggered on April 1st, but all logical investments. The 49ers love going with that April 1st trigger because it does give them some optionality over the course of free agency, right? When you go through all of your business in March, you can then look at where your roster's at. And if there's a player who you have some questions about, well, then if you can cut ties or make a move, restructure a deal before April 1st, before that trigger hits in that particular contract, then you can obviously create a much more financially efficient situation for yourself. Those were not the first triggers of this 2026 calendar cycle, nor will they be the last. Luke Farrell, for example, the tight end, whom the 49ers signed last offseason, he's got a contractual trigger coming up, but his doesn't hit until August 25th. And that's going to be a second option bonus for Luke Farrell, which hits on August 25th of $2.65 million. So that one, it's not guaranteed right now, and there's nothing guaranteed in Farrell's salary for this year. For example, and this one gives them post-draft flexibility. Like April 1st triggers give the 49ers post-free agency flexibility, but they still come before the NFL draft. August triggers, like the one for the tight end, Luke Farrell, actually allow the 49ers to potentially draft a tight end. And if they feel that Luke Farrell no longer fits into their plans, well, before that trigger has to happen, before money is paid out as an option bonus or guaranteed, the 49ers can decide to move in another direction. So all interesting contractual stuff. Christian McCaffrey had a pre-free agency trigger for the 49ers, so his option bonus already locked in for this year. And of course, one of the most famous post-free agency triggers this year, it was a little bit earlier, it was in mid-March, came for Trent Williams. And the 49ers decided actually not to pick up the option, but the money still has to be there. They moved Trent Williams' $10 million option bonus into base salary, essentially kicked the can down the road in a way, though, that strongly suggested that the 49ers and Williams will get their contractual business done. Maybe it's even going to happen in the next few days. John Lynch seemed confident about that at the NFL owners' meetings. Speaking of the NFL draft, I found this very interesting. Cameron De Silva covers the Rams, and obviously the Rams have been in the news, probably not for great reasons, but Puka Nacua has, according to his lawyer, checked into rehab. And that is a massive, massive NFL story because Nacua, just like JSN up in Seattle, is in line for a massive new contract this offseason. Obviously, JSN has signed his new contract. A lot of eyes now on Puka. And, well, the Rams, they've got to make sure that this off-field stuff is settled down and taken care of before they can think about committing massive money to one of the NFL's best receivers. But speaking of the Rams, Les Snead also said at the NFL owners' meetings that the Rams intentionally gave up day 3 picks in this year's draft for Trent McDuffie because they believe the class is, quote unquote, a little thin later. They believe that the draft class is not all that strong in the later rounds. Well, I think the 49ers have the same opinion, although they haven't said this out loud about the draft class. But look at the 49ers pick inventory. They don't have anything beyond the 4th round. No 5th round picks, no 6th round picks, no 7th round picks. Even if San Francisco does trade Brandon Ayuk, it almost certainly won't happen until after June 1st, which is after the draft because of financial reasons. So they wouldn't be in line to get a 2026 pick. It wouldn't be until 2027 when San Francisco would stand to get draft compensation. So I don't think that this is all just by coincidence. The Rams saying they don't like the bottom of this draft class. I think the 49ers actions over the last couple of years, which obviously factor in the projected strength of draft classes, say the same thing. I think the 49ers believe that 2027 is a stronger draft. I think all analysts say that 2027 is projecting to be one of the strongest ones we've seen in some time. And if they don't believe all that much in 2026, especially in the bottom parts of it, well, fewer picks this year, more trades to put the 49ers in this position with fewer picks. They made 4 trades last year. All makes sense. And as it stands right now, the 49ers sitting there with a pick in the first round at number 27 and the second round, what is it? I think number 58, obviously a little bit lower in the second round. Nothing in the third round for the 49ers because they traded that selection to Dallas for Osa Odighizuwa and then a horde of 4th round picks for San Francisco. By the way, Brian Schottenheimer, the Dallas head coach at the NFL owners meetings, said that he and Osa wept together on the phone after he was traded to the 49ers. You know, Osa was popular in Dallas, and I just think that the front office didn't plan the tackle situation all too well. They paid Osa Odighizuwa $80 million over 4 years just last year, and then they added 2 defensive tackles who obviously are the future for Dallas. Kenny Clark came over from the Green Bay Packers in the Parsons trade, and then they traded for Quinnen Williams, and all of a sudden they had 3 defensive tackles even after they paid the first one, Osa Odighizuwa. So the 49ers were able to pry him out of there via trade, but that doesn't mean that Osa is unpopular with the coaching staff. And the staff obviously wasn't making these defensive tackle decisions. Osa's been a really productive pass rusher, really good 3-down player for the Cowboys. That's why they paid him the money that they did. And then, well, the front office just getting a little sloppy with its trading and, added 2 more defensive tackles after they paid 1. So the Cowboys' laziness, whatever you want to call it, the Cowboys' messiness ended up being the 49ers' gain. And obviously Brian Schottenheimer admitted to being emotional when losing Osa Odighizuwa, who is known to be a really, really good locker room guy as well. And the 49ers are going to be able to get him. You know, when you talk about the 49ers salary cap picture, they've got about $18 million in space right now. And the reason I have that projection is because I am counting a full 53-man roster, which in a way does make a prediction for how much the draft class is going to cost. It will cost $9.5 million by the law of the NFL rookie wage scale. But I'm trying to just factor in how the rookies and those who do make the roster are going to impact the 49ers cap situation. So I predict that they're a little bit under 20 million in cap space right now. Of course, they stand to open up money with the Trent Williams extension whenever that's done. So you're going to slash that cap hit from 46 million down to 25 million or so. That should open up quite a bit of space for the 49ers, over $20 million. But with Osa Odighizuwa, you can also open up some space this year because he's got a $16.75 million salary cap hit. But the base salary is that for Osa Odighizuwa this year. It's very large. So they can actually slash base salary and convert it into option bonus, standard restructure. If he's going to play for the team no matter what this year, why not guarantee that money for Osa Odighizuwa? And they could further lower the cap hit that way. Wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers made such a move, and I wouldn't be surprised if they entered this offseason or, the next offseason, the 2027 cycle, with $35 to $40 million of carryover space, which is exactly, this brings us back to the start. You have these guarantees trigger for Brock Purdy, for Colton McKivitz, for Fred Warner, escalating costs for those guys over the years. Well, that's how you pay those escalating costs. Unused salary cap space carries over from season to season, and the 49ers, when you look at Brock Purdy's deal, then it is one with very, very aggressive prorations. And you need to make sure that you do have that ample cap space the sinks of every year are connected by pipes, and you can't have the water overflow the sink in any given year. So you've got to let more water from the 2026 sink to the 2027 sink to take care of some of these cap hits. I mean, by 2028, it's scheduled to reach $57.6 million for Purdy. By 2029, $72.5 million. Now, they're going to be able to move that water into further sinks, assuming that Brock Purdy is still with the team and still playing at a top level. But in the near term, to make sure that they have enough water or enough space for the water of all these expenditures, the 49ers need to continue carrying room over. We'll see what the next signings are for the 49ers. A lot of exciting stuff in store for you guys. They still have about 17 roster spots left, and we're moving into NFL draft mode. So that is the news for this morning. Big news, $58 million. Guarantees triggered for San Francisco. Hit that like button, hit the sub button, hit the little alert bell. It's been great talking to you guys. We'll do some more soon.